Welcome to Indigenous Cryptid. I'm your host, Aaron. We are following 3 tales of paranormal creatures. First up will be Wade with his UFO encounter and his shadow people. And an anonymous storyteller will talk about mysterious legs.
My story takes place in the year 2016, around the fall, this time area. I was driving along 371 in the middle of the night, south, thinking that nothing was going to happen. I believe in UFOs, unidentified flying objects. I believe people see them. There's hoax out there, so which leaves me kind of skeptic until that night. But prior to that day, I guess I was binging on horror films and nothing but UFO paraphernalia, content, movies, Fire in the Sky, Fourth Kind, it's the other one, the one with Walter, Communion movie. Those are some pretty heavy alien abduction movies, which I was pretty into, being a fanatic of space and time. Just pretty much open-minded to anything, leaving my mind open to possibilities of anything's possible out there in the world and the universe, because when you look up in the sky in the middle of the night, that's all you see is nothing but black stars, bright stars in the middle of the night. And it's just amazing on what you can imagine what is out there in the universe, which leaves me a skeptic person when it comes to myself believing in something. I'll believe in something, but I won't know it's real until I actually see it. So I've had very vivid dreams about aliens abducting me in my sleep, actually feeling their little bitty hands grabbing a hold of my arms and wrists, pulling me away, trying to pull me into like a saucer. This is like years throughout the time between as a kid and to present. But nothing recently since then, my last encounter. So back to driving in the middle of the night in 371 a couple of years ago, past Lake Valley area, middle of nowhere, coming down a hill, passing some abandoned windmill. So coming down a hill, not thinking anything of anything. On the corner of my left eye, I saw something hover off the ground straight up, like a magnet was pulling it up. And it had little orbs. It had lights around it, but not regular lights, not like Christmas lights, not like any kind of light. The only kind of light you would see when it's raining and the rain is hitting the glass, and you look out the window and you see street lights, and you see just that orb when you look out through the wet glass, that orb of light. So there was like orbs of light like that all around this saucer thing. And it was silver. I saw that it was like silverish. Even in the middle of the night, the orbs were glowing. I could see it was silver. Just for a glimpse, it just seemed like time stood right there for like a split second as this saucer thing with orbs rose just in the middle of nowhere in the corner of my eye, really close, right up to the side of the highway, and just went straight up. And right when I noticed it, I went down the hill, and the hill that I went down was just completely made the saucer disappear. And I don't know what happened, but I believe I saw something that night. It was really strange, really odd. And so now every time I pass that area, I just always look at that spot where I saw it, just to see like if anything was there, but nothing. So the only proof I have right now is basically my words and my memory. It was a pretty strange encounter. I wouldn't say encounter, just a witness. But they are out there. I want to believe. The truth is out there. Bye.
that was Wade with UFOs. Here's his second story.
So this encounter has to deal with myself witnessing something in the shadows. Not a person or a thing, like something that you could touch. Not a monster. Not a monster in the dark, just the shadow itself. When I was young, I used to see strange stuff, just like kids see all the time. They see a bunch of strange stuff going in and out of the dark, and grown-ups never seem to believe their kids, their blood. Like, that's not real. You're just a kid. Your imagination is too wild right now. You're seeing lots of things. It's not real. But experiencing something, encountering something that you know isn't real, shouldn't be there, that shouldn't exist, that's been gone for a long time, and you see something like that, and makes you start to think about all sorts of things throughout your life. For me, I guess it all started with this encounter. I started getting into the paranormal as well, being an enthusiast on Bigfoots, troll people, jackalopes, ghosts, aliens, UFOs. I hear about like kangaroo creatures killing cattle, dancing around them in the middle of the night and hopping over them. Weird stuff, strange stuff. Humans coming from different worlds, different planets, blending in with us whenever they want. Reptile people. I believe in reptile people. But this encounter is, I guess, what started off with all my fascination with all this stuff. All the paranormal. So, as a kid, 5 or 6 years old, I was at my Nolly's house, my dad's mom's house. You can call it Nolly. So, it was like a family get-together that weekend, and my cousins, aunties, uncles, we all went to my Nolly's house to have a family weekend. Everyone sleeps over. We have family dinner Saturdays. I was just a kid. They have no power lines, no running water out there. They live in the boonies deep within the Navajo Reservation in White Ruins, Arizona. So in the middle of the night, well, for me it was in the middle of the night, but because I was just a kid, but my aunties, uncles, and my parents, they were awake. They were talking to each other. They were just having a good time in the living room. Everyone having fun. I woke up in the middle of the night in my PJs. Had to go outside because everyone was having a good time, and I didn't want to ruin that. I pulled up my big boy pants. I went outside in the middle of the night to use the restroom. Didn't want to go too far from the house because it was pitch black and I didn't want to risk it. Went behind the corner to a tree, watered the tree, and started heading back inside. So, as I was walking back inside, scratch that. I lied about the electricity. There was a security light in the parking lot, and that was like kind of like the only electricity out there. And there was light shining off into a shack house that was connected to my Nolly's house, and there's like a bunch of junk in there, like pots and old bed frames, a pool table. There's a bunch of old junk that no one was using. But there was light pouring in that shed house with all that junk. And then there was something growling. I was like, what's that? I stopped my footsteps. I looked inside the shed house on the wall, and I saw a saber-tooth shadow on the wall, walking along. You could see its backbones, its shoulder blades as it walked. You could see its fangs, its teeth. It was growling. It was walking towards the corner. But as it got to the corner, it stood up upright and it started walking like a man. And as a kid, seeing something like that freaked me out. I started panicking, crying. I ran inside. I didn't run inside. I ran to the door, trying to open the door. It was locked. And I could feel like the hairs on the back of my neck was standing up. I could feel like something was right behind me, like shadow. And before anything, I guess, could happen, my dad let me in. He got mad at me while I was outside. No one believed me. A couple years later, I took a close friend of mine out there. We're taking a walk. We're a little bit older this time. We're like 13. We're around the same area, my Nolly's house. There was a barn like way in the back, and we were just hanging out back there, middle of the night, and we started walking back. And it was like kind of like a half moon, but it was really bright. We were walking back to the house, and my bro, he noticed something on the hill. It was like a saber tooth. Like it wasn't on the wall, or it was just like standing kind of on top of the hill, but we really couldn't see it. It was just like the figure of a saber tooth. We got freaked out. We just thought it was like a mountain lion. It was pitch black dark. We just hurried and walked back to the house. And I was telling him about my experience as a kid about the shadow people, and we were just wondering, if that was the same thing, if that's really out there, if that stuff is really out there, if there really is a saber tooth out there. I don't know, but definitely shadow people is in my books. Watch out.
That was Wade with UFOs and shadow people. Here is Anonymous Storyteller.
Long ago, in an area called Antelope Lookout, and it was at least 2 generations ago, during a time when sheep camps were still around, and it changed out with the seasons. My grandparents had an area in where they would take their sheep to, and that was on the east side of where they resided, at least about a mile, a quarter away. And they had different areas around their housing. So they took their sheep to this area on the east side of where they lived before a highway existed. And now that's Highway 371. There was one evening that they had stayed at that sheep camp, and this place was built by my grandfather out of the earth and the straw, basically mud and straw, and he would build bricks of it. He built that, and then atop of that was boards. He made like a little small house for my grandmother and my grandfather to sleep in. And that evening, they had heard their sheep roaming around and being chased. They had seen green little legs. And this was an open window with no window frame, no window sill. But if you wanted to add a blockage from anything coming through that square opening, it would be covered by what my grandfather had constructed himself. Was a square with maybe plexiglass. I don't know if it was real glass, but he would use that to block sandstorm coming through, the wind, rain. And that evening, that window was left open. And there was no seal, nothing. And the sheep went, they were just running around the corral. The dogs kept barking. My grandparents didn't investigate or anything, but it got eerily silent. Just as they were going to investigate, whatever was out there had jumped on top of the roof, and it ended up resting its legs at the edge of the roof, and its legs was green, and it had a glow to it. And my grandparents just left it alone. And this was on the west side of the house, the west window. My grandparents, they leave it be, and it's there. They end up laying there doing nothing as the sun is rising. When the hue hits the horizon on the east side, whatever it was gets up and leaves. So now, during my mother's generation, she is the second youngest of 12 siblings. She was at that same sheep camp, but now with an added road, which is now Highway 371. She was sleeping in that same house with my grandparents along with her other siblings. The same thing had happened with the sheep. My mom was maybe around 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7. They start running around in the corral. The dogs start to bark. Her older siblings, the males, go out to investigate it, and they really can't find anything. So they leave it be. They end up going back to sleep. It gets very, very quiet again. It gets very quiet, and the same thing happens. The sheep start going crazy in the corral again. They start running around. Then they hear something walking towards them, and the dogs stop barking. And my mom lays there. My grandparents, they're asleep. Then the dogs get quiet. Whatever was out there that scared the sheep in the corral, that scared the dogs and made them silent, and the sheep became silent, they started hearing whatever was out there walking towards that house that my grandfather had built. It jumped on top of the roof, is what my mom had said. It sat that same area on the west side of the house where the opening of the window was at. And my mom said it was empty. There was no windowsill, nothing. She didn't want to open her eyes, but I remember her telling me she forced them open to see what was there. She said she saw legs. It wasn't human. It wasn't... She just said she couldn't really distinctively tell what it was, but she knows that it wasn't anything of this area, of this world. She stares at it for a long time, and she's quiet. She tries to force herself to go to sleep, and she says the same thing happened as the sun was rising on the east side, and it hit the horizon. The color of it, once it hits, and whatever it was decides to leave. My mom hasn't told that story in a very long time, but that's one thing she always, whenever she thinks of anything that's out of this world or that's unexplainable, that's one thing she'll bring up if you should ask her. It haven't heard it from her in a long time, but I know if I do ask her, what's something that you've experienced that you can't explain? And that's the one true event for her that took place between the age of 5 or 7.
Thank you for listening to Indigenous Cryptid. I hope you have a good evening. What is your story?